I sometimes get the question, have you, Bob Larson, ever had an exorcism? The answer is no. I have not had demons cast out of me. But I have been through deliverance prayers with mature Christians connected to this ministry, men whom I spiritually trust. I gave them permission to probe as deeply as they wished to see if they could find anything demonically attached to me. They found nothing. I have my own thoughts about why I've never been demonized. I didn't become a Christian until my early 20s. Satan had opportunities to spiritually infect me all those years that I headed up a rock and roll band performing in bars and nightclubs. But it didn't happen. I believe that God protected me spiritually so that I would be better prepared for the ministry that I now have. The other question that I get is this: have you ever needed to break curses? The answer to that question is yes, on at least 2 occasions. First, my grandfather, on my mother's side, fled the communist Bolsheviks in Prussia at the turn of the century and came to America. My great-grandmother witnessed the communists shooting one of her sons in cold blood, and she dropped dead of a heart attack. I learned about this while my oldest daughter was rummaging through boxes in the garage and found a note that my late mother had written describing this event. I was never told about it, but I remember my daughter's words as she read from the piece of paper disclosing what had happened. She was only about 13 at the time. But she looked at me very seriously and said, "Dad, this sounds like a curse." We immediately stopped and prayed over this curse lest any spirit of death coming down through the bloodline would affect me and my family. There was one other occasion when I found it necessary to break a curse, about 10 years ago. I was at my office going through mementos in my desk drawers. I found a beautiful large pocket watch that I didn't remember. At first I thought it was from my father, but then I realized it was from my mother's father. This is the same grandfather whose mother had dropped dead when her son was murdered. When I turned the watch over, I saw the square and compass of Freemasonry on the back. I'd never known that my grandfather was a Mason. I called one of my cousins and asked him if he knew that our grandfather was a Freemason. His response was very direct. "Of course, didn't anyone ever tell you that?" Well, apparently the whole extended family knew except my father and mother. By the way, they were the only ones who were Christians. My mother had 3 brothers. My cousin told me that all 3 brothers, my uncles, were also Freemasons. Then I started thinking that side of my family was possibly cursed with the spirit of death from the murder and the lodge. The majority of my uncles and cousins have suffered extraordinary tragedies. There's no way the extent of evil afflicting my mother's side of the family could have just happened without there being curses, especially the killing and the Freemasonry. My mother was the only one of 5 children of my Freemason grandfather who became an active Christian. Because of this, she didn't suffer like the others did. I believe that the Lord protected me from those curses until I could be confronted with them. The moment I found out about the watch, I immediately called my wife Laura and told her what my cousin had said. We immediately prayed to break these curses from our entire bloodline. Just because I'm an exorcist and I've written dozens of books about spiritual warfare doesn't mean that I or anyone else is automatically immune from curses and demonic attacks if a door is left open. Don't you assume that no matter how spiritual you are, no matter how active your Christian life may be, that you don't need to break curses in your bloodline. If you want to be certain, get my book, Curse Breaking, and read it thoroughly. You might also want to get my book, Freedom from Freemasonry, because you may have Masonic lodge rituals in your background that you know nothing about. An ounce of prevention could be better than having to seek deliverance later. I don't have demons and apparently never did. But I did have curses. And thank God I've broken them through the power of Jesus Christ. Please don't consider yourself automatically immune from secret attacks of the enemy. There is no harm in going through your ancestry and cutting off any evil that could pass on to you. Mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual hindrances. I have been cursed, and it's possible you may also have been cursed.
Your financial support and prayers make it possible for us to bring hope for the hurting and freedom to those in spiritual bondage. For the latest information regarding ministry outreaches, go to boblarson.org or call 303-980-1511.